Hi everyone, today let's talk about the FTC antitrust suit against Amazon. Then we'll take a look at the data. Then we'll take a look at the charts and my results for the day and my thoughts going into tomorrow's session. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So the FTC is looking to open an antitrust suit against Amazon at some point in September. Apparently they already had a call on the 15th of August, but were unable to come to an agreement between the FTC and the Amazon legal team. And right now, that's all we know. This is definitely a threat to Amazon, at least in the short term. And anything that is an unknown could certainly affect the stock price. And when it's such a large stock, it can absolutely affect the overall markets, at least a little bit. Moving over to today's economic calendar, you can see factory orders were slightly better than expectations. Still not great at minus 2.1%, but better than expected. Looking at tomorrow, we have import-exports at 8:30, global composite PMI, as well as global services PMI. Both of those are expected to be above 50, which is good, but lower than the previous iteration on both. And then we have ISM non-manufacturing PMI at 10 o'clock. Again, a slight step down, but above the 50 line. Not terrible. Moving over to Max Payne, you can see it's sitting at 446. Current stock price 449. Options 1.1 million still. 2.5 on the put call ratio. Put wall now here at 445. I believe this is a little bit higher than what we saw in the weekend session. 453 on the call wall. Top of the puts all the way up at 456, which again is a little bit higher than I remember it being. Overall, slightly bullish on the put call ratio, and it wouldn't be crazy if we finished basically a 0.5% positive or negative from current prices. Right here in this 449 area, a little bit higher, closer to the top of the puts, certainly possible, or a little bit lower, 447, 448, right in this area, right in this dip low. Either one is possible, but it doesn't seem like we're going to have a major swing in either direction, at least this week. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the SPY here on the hour and the 1 day. You can see we were slightly negative on the day. We got below the 55 on the hourly chart for the first time. We were testing that level on the Friday session, got below it here this week, retested the 21 and then broke down pretty heavily from that level. So shorter term downtrend on the hourly chart. Very slow downtrend, but slightly down. You can see we're still above my trend line at 448.75. Certainly an interesting area. And you can see that here on the daily chart. Gap down and fell, looking for that support at 448.74, and then trend support sitting down at 448.13. Slightly bearish, definitely pulling back. If this breaks down tomorrow, that's going to be a strong indicator to the downside, especially since this would be a lower high setup on the daily chart, and I would expect this to break down quite dramatically if we did get follow through on that move. Next level below that would be 445.49, right into that put wall that we talked about on the SPY. Momentum, step down on the daily chart. Volume not really following through quite yet, but if it did step up on a breakdown, that would be a big indicator. And then you have the 21 EMA sitting all the way down at 444.35. We talked about how that could be an area of support on the Sunday video. So just $1 or so below that horizontal support. And if this current level breaks, I wouldn't expect to find support until we got into that zone. Moving over to the NASDAQ on the hour and the daily, not the same thesis. So we gapped down, found support at my horizontal level, 376.45, ended up rallying right to the next one, 378.77, got above it just for a moment and then broke back down into the middle of this range. And that's where we finished on the day. Slightly bullish, 0.13% on the NASDAQ, better than the SPY by about 0.5%. Otherwise, no change to the trading range. Still in this zone. All the EMAs are right on top of each other in the short term. Again, if this 376.45 level breaks, you can see how much room there is to the next level. 372.85 is next support. And then the 21 sitting all the way down at 368.55. Does look like we're starting to consolidate, establish this as a lower high from this previous high. And if that is true, then we should expect that bigger pullback like I talked about on the SPY. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, the Russell gap down, fell aggressively. This was the weakest of the bunch, down around 2% or a little bit more on the day. Definitely not great. Took out these levels, took out the 21 on the 4-hour chart, came all the way down to this trend support that we were watching, going back to 18 August. If that level breaks, then we're really looking to these previous lows at 183.28. Still got the 55 sitting at 186.11, but this is a pretty big bearish move at this point. You might find a little bit of support in the zone, retest the 21, and then get a bigger breakdown, maybe just a slight pullback. But overall, at this point, you would expect any kind of rally to be met with sellers. And this does not look as good on the Russell as the NASDAQ. Dow also breaking down below the 200 does not look great. Took out my 347.67 level. Next support for me, 345.24, maybe the 55 at 346.09. Momentum on both of these bearish. Volume on the Russell was quite high on this down move, so that's not great. Dow not showing much of anything, pretty low volume on the day. Moving over to the equal weighted S&Ps just for a moment. On the daily chart, you can see this big red bar. I want to highlight how bearish it looked today. Very similar to the Russell. Took out 149.82, broke down dramatically after the gap down. Not great. Momentum stepping down. RSI breaking below the 50 line. Volume pretty weak on the day, but overall everything looks pretty weak here. Moving over to Apple and Tesla. Apple continues this uptrend. Slight bullish day. Not super strong. You can see momentum is bearish. RSI below the SMA, looking to break down a little bit. We had a pretty decent move down in the pre-market. Obviously, we bought up from that level, and this is still a technical bull trend on the 4-hour chart. But you have to be a little bit hesitant on that bearish momentum. Doesn't mean we can't absolutely push higher from here, potentially looking at that 193.96 area. But it is something to pay attention to. Does seem to be finding some resistance in this area. And moving over to Tesla, the exact opposite. We already got the big move down on Friday session. We ended up rallying right back into that zone, breaking above my 255.44 level. I would have expected a move down to the 55 on the 4-hour chart, but we ended up holding right here at these previous tops and then rallied back up into the zone. So now you have a low, higher low setup, and if this is going to follow through into that higher high, you would at least expect a move up to 264.68. And if we zoom out here, you can see there's a lot of room above that level. There's probably some resistance you could put in here around this 280 area. You can see that area of higher volume. In fact, I'm going to add that level here, 280.06, right at that area of higher volume. If we break here, that's what I would expect to see a move up to. Right now, everything looks pretty bullish on Tesla in comparison to the other charts. Moving over to staples and discretionary. Staples continues to fall through the floor. My current support was at 70.85 and it continues to fall into that area. Momentum bearish, no change here. We did get overbought conditions just for a moment, so we'll see if that continues to hold. But again, 70.85 makes the most sense to me. Discretionaries rallied a little bit with Tesla. We're still below the 9, as well as VWAP and the 144, so kind of consolidating in the zone on slight bearish momentum. We did have nice volume on that up candle, which is interesting, but still stuck between the 200 and the 144. Moving over to breadth on the 50 and the 200-day average. On the daily chart, you can see both of these rejected from the 21 EMA. Momentum step down on both as well. RSI looking to come down and retest the SMA at a minimum. Absolutely could come down, find a double bottom, rally off of that level. Certainly possible. But if it takes out these previous levels and we move much lower, we can see the 50 move all the way down into this 15.15 area, the low from March. That would be interesting. And if we did get back into that zone, you can see the March low here for the 200-day average was right down at this 36.23 area, the same level that we saw on the May low, which did give us that indicator of a buy. We had a double bottom here and a higher low on the 50-day average, which ended up resulting in that nice bullish rally. And now we have a high, lower high, much lower high setting up. And if we get a lower low in this previous low, we could look for support in that area. Moving over to the dollar on the hour and the weekly chart. You can see we got an absolute bullish rally off of the 21, super big move, broke that 104.41 area, hit the 55 EMA on the weekly chart, sitting at 104.87. And this is an important level here. If we reject off of this level, you could absolutely see a bigger move down. Momentum is super bullish. RSI continues to move higher. Momentum on the hourly chart, stepping down. RSI also stepping down. Of course, you can't discount this super bullish move on both charts, but it is interesting to see that on the hourly chart, as well as that critical level on the weekly. Everything looks super bullish on the dollar, but an interesting level nonetheless. Moving over to bonds on JNK and TLT. Big move down on both charts. JNK getting all the way down below 91.50, back below this highly traded zone. Does not look great. Momentum stepping down quite strongly. TLT had the big gap down on Friday, another big gap and fall here today. At this point, this looks much weaker than what we were looking at on the previous iteration. Certainly could come down and retest this low, which is that same low going back to October. And at this point, you would expect it to break down below that. You have a high, lower high. You could also argue high, lower high. It tried to pull back. 21 EMA did not hold, and this looks very weak now. Moving over to the volatility indices, MOVE index rallied from this low right back up to the trend. If this breaks above, that could be interesting, but we're right there at a critical level. Momentum turns slightly towards bullish. Similarly here on the VIX, turns slightly towards bullish on momentum. Gapped up strongly off of that trend line that we talked about in the Friday as well as the Sunday videos. Very critical level there on the VIX. Doesn't mean that we're going to break out or go into crazy highs at this point yet. But it does seem like we could get a rally back up to 1490 or maybe even the 21 EMA sitting at 1565. Interesting development off of that trend support, potentially looking for a slight move higher on the VIX. Moving over to my results, you can see I was still slightly positive on the day. Obviously, I could not withstand that $4 move here on the IWM, big down move. I was able to protect myself from some of it. And I did sell a call here at the 188 position, and then I rolled that down to 187 as the IWM continued to fall. This looks super weak now, and it's something I'll be watching going into tomorrow's session. Still have one level of support that I'm watching. Maybe we get a slight pullback on the IWM to the upside tomorrow. Looking at the NASDAQ, I moved all of my positions down to my core position here. I had a put and a call for 1 day out that I was able to make some money on. Everything looks okay here. And the NASDAQ still looks neutral based on the charts, so I do have my core position. If it breaks down at that level that I talked about, I'll start to add some calls to protect myself. Overall, bearish on the IWM, looking for a slight pullback. NASDAQ looking neutral and only holding my core position here. Let me know down in the comment section what you think the FTC is going to do to Amazon, and will that affect the broader markets? Or if you have any charts you think that I should be watching, definitely let me know about those as well. And of course, if you got any value out of this video, make sure you like and subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.